leaderboards are a common feature that you're going to see on most Roblox games. And if you want to get one in your game, this tutorial's got you covered. Today, we're going to make a leaderboard, but we're going to make it reusable, so you can package it up and use it across any future projects. We're going to start by creating our leaderboard script in a very similar way to what the Roblox documentation shows us. We're then going to create an object, which is going to be our leaderboard. Then we'll move that code into a reusable script. Let's get started. We start by adding a server script, and we connect to the player added function. So every time a player gets added to the game, this script is going to get triggered. Next, we're going to create a new folder and assign that to the player. This is just the same as doing leaderstats.parent is equal to player. We'll remove that for now, and then we'll set the leaderstats folder name to leaderstats. Now, it's really important that you get the casing exactly the same. This is a value that Roblox is looking for, so we can get the leaderstats board up and shown in the GUI. Next, we're going to create the first value that we're going to show on the leaderboard. So that's going to be gold, and this is a new int value. We give it the name of gold, set the value to 0, and set the gold parent to leaderstats. We can then repeat this for silver, and then once again for bronze. So if we now play this, we can see the order in which we set our values is the order in which they show up on the board. If I stop this, and we'll put silver first, we can see we get silver. So in terms of how the order you want to see them on the board, it's really important that you set them in that order. However, there is a different way. So let's move gold to the bottom. So now if we play it, we can see we've got silver, bronze and gold. But I want gold to be first. Now I could always set it and make sure that gold comes first and it goes gold, silver, bronze. But if we're making this reusable, we probably want to do it in a slightly different way. And the way we can do that is by setting the priority. So what I'll do here is I'm going to copy this and just make a couple of changes. We'll call this priority, and this can be called gold priority. And I want this one to be first, so I'm going to give it the highest value, which is 3. And then we will parent it to gold. We'll now do the same for the other ones, which will be silver priority. Just realised I have missed gold priority there. Let's change these to silver priority, make that 2, and set the parent to silver. You can see already we're getting quite a lot of code here. And we're going to add one more in for bronze priority. You could always make these variable names shorter if you want. I just prefer more of a description. So we've got bronze and gold being 3. This will be first, this will be second, and this will be third. If we press play, first, second, third. If we were just to change these two around, just to prove the point, change that to 1, change this to 3, silver will stay where it is, and bronze and gold swap around. Reset these. So then, by having this priority order, it doesn't matter which order you set these other items. And this is going to be really helpful for us when we create our class, which we're going to do now. So let's go into here, create a module script. What I'm doing here is using a module script so we can create a class and use object-oriented programming concepts. If you don't know what object-oriented programming is, I highly recommend that you check out my video on object-oriented programming. I've left a link in the description below, or there's a link on this video right now. Feel free to go and check it out, then come straight back here to continue with this video. So we're going to call this module script leaderstats manager. That can be the name of the module too. So the first thing I'm going to do is set the index, because if I don't, I usually forget. Now we've got a function to create a new instance of our leaderstats manager, and we set the variable of self equal to set meta table, and we're going to have some columns. Set columns to an empty table. The columns are going to represent what we're going to show on the leaderboard. So for our example that we've just looked at is gold, silver and bronze. But we don't pass that in here because that's going to be passed in by the calling script. And then we set leaderstats manager, and we want to return self. So now anything that calls this will have access to self. Make this a touch smaller. And the next thing we're going to do is make a create function. In this case, they're going to pass it. It's going to ask the user to pass in the player and the column definitions. I'll show you how we create the column definitions in a few minutes. So I'm going to come back to our first script which we created, and I'm going to take this line and drop it into our function here. And then I want to write a for loop, because what I'm going to do now is loop over each one of the column definitions that's been passed in and add a new column to our leaderstat table. So what we're going to say is calling this stat just to refer to statistic. I could probably have a better name, but we'll go with this. And our column is going to have a type. If they don't pass a type in, it's going to take a default value of an int value. It'll allow for the user to pass in the string if they want it. And then we're going to assign this to the parent of leaderstats. Oh, don't know what happened there. Then we're going to call stat.name is equal to whatever the name that's been passed in for the column is. So you're getting some idea now of what the column definition is going to look like. It's going to have a type on it. It's going to have a name on it. Now a stat.value is equal to column. Try that again. Column.value. And if they don't give me a value, I'm going to give it a default of 0. And maybe I should type column correctly. So we have a column definition which accepts a type, it has a name, and it has a value. Now, this stat which I've created is the same as one of these. So remember, I created the leaderboard stat, parented it to a player. That's what I've done here, and then that's what I did for this new instance type. Then I set the name and the value, and that's what we're doing here. Our next stage is we want to set the priority, and the way I'm going to do that is come and steal this piece of code which we wrote. I'm going to put it in there, and instead of calling it goal priority, I'm just going to call it priority, rename it, and I'm going to set it to the parent of stat. In addition to this, there's going to be a column dot priority, and if they don't pass a value in, it's going to be 0. So what happens in Roblox, if you pass in a value for priority, the highest priority is the one that's closest to the left-hand side of the column. But if you pass in no priority, or they all have the same number, in this case it would be 0, then they'll be ordered based on the order in which they've been created. So next we want to call this class. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take everything that we've done here, I'll delete it, and what we're going to need to do now is require our leaderstats manager and create a new instance of the leaderstats. Then we want to call our create method and pass in the values that we want it to create for us. So the 3 objects I'm passing is gold, silver and bronze. What I'll do is I'll move gold down here. I'll give it a priority of 3, bronze a priority of 1 and silver a priority of 2. Just to show that their order's been based on priority. And one other thing I can do is pass in a team with a string value, priority of 0, so this will go last. Now if we run this, we can see we've got gold, silver, bronze, and a team of red. So this is great. It reduces a little bit of code, but there's some other functionality that we can add to this. You might have a game where you want to hide your leaderboard or show it. So let's add a couple of methods in to help us do that. If we're going to package this up and make it something that's reusable across multiple projects, we want it to have quite rich set of functionality. Now, although this will be only basic, the leaderboard is quite a basic feature in Roblox, so we're not going to add much more than this. However, hopefully it'll be really useful for you. So to hide the leader stats, you do require a local script. And this is going to be something we're packaging up. And when you package something up, you don't want to be having to do other setup, which means we need to have the local script held in here, and then we're going to copy it to the player GUI. So I type in local script, and we'll call this hide leader stats, and then we'll duplicate it to call show leader stats, make that a capital. So what we do here is we get the starter GUI, we then set the player list to false. So this simply hides it. If I copy this script and change that to true, this will allow us to show the leaderboard. So we need to clone them and copy them to the player GUI. For me to do that, I'm going to need 2 services. I'm going to define them at the top of my script. So this is just a personal preference. I like to see all the services that I'm going to use in the script at the top. And for me, it just makes it easier to navigate my scripts, knowing what it is I expect to be working with within that script. But now we've got our players service and we've got our starter GUI. So we can come down here and in the hide function, I can get the hide script and clone it. Then I can parent it to the player GUI. Notice inside the script, which I didn't mention, at the end of it, it destroys itself. So the script is going to run. Once it's run, it's going to clear itself out. And then I do the same for the show script. So if we go back to our calling script, and we'll do task.wait for we'll say 3 seconds, so it's not too long. Then we can do leaderstats, hide, and we'll pass in the player, and then run the game. You can see we get the leaderboard, and after 3 seconds, it doesn't do anything. Let's stop that. Take a look at what the problem is. If we look at the output, you can see the problem is attempt to call index nil with clone, hide script, so self is nil, and we haven't added any references to our index. What we need to do here is we'll call this hide script, and we'll make that equal to the script dot hide leaderstat script. So what that's doing is we've now got a property that's equal to this hide leaderstats, and then we'll do the same for show leaderstats dot show leaderstats, and then we try again. So now after 3 seconds, we'll see that this disappears, and if we this time we won't wait for 3 seconds. Stop wait 1 second. So don't blink or you're going to miss it. It's going to hide after 3 seconds, and then after 1 more second, it's going to come back. So it's gone, and then it came back. So we've got a bit more functionality on our leader stats manager now. So from here, what we can do is add a part. I'm going to get rid of the hide and show functionality just because that's not needed anymore. And on our part, we're going to create a script just to show this working and how you can use it. And here we're accessing the parent part. We're getting the value that's passed through when the part is touched. This is going to be our character. We then call the players service get player from character. We pass the character in and we get our player. From here, each time the scripts run, then the gold value is going to increase by 1. Come here and you can see, because I haven't got any debouncer, every time the player runs over it, we're hitting the part. So now you've added the leader stats manager, it can be reusable, you can package it up, and you can use it across any of your projects. And every time you want to call the leader stats, you just call the relevant column value you want to add to, and you can increment the value like this. And this is just fine for the smaller games. But if you want to make your game more scalable, I've got another video which builds on this to help you do just that. The link is on the screen now. Click it and I'll see you there.